During the early morning hours of May 15, 2025, police responded to a 911 call about a domestic dispute at an apartment in Boston's Chinatown neighborhood. At the scene, officers encountered 27-year-old Marwa Khudaynazar and 26-year-old Chulan Huang, who were both employed as city officials at the time. Khudaynazar was the chief of staff at Boston's Office of Police Accountability, while Huang worked for the Office of Economic Opportunity and Inclusion. The pair were in a romantic relationship but were fighting because Huang believed that Khudaynazar had gone on a date with his boss. He told police that the two had booked a hotel room and accused Khudaynazar of stopping at his apartment to rub it in his face. Huang further explained that when he took Khudaynazar's phone and started reading her messages, she began punching and biting him. Khudaynazar told law enforcement that she went on a date with Huang's boss because he had cheated on her first. She accused Huang of grabbing her wrists and refusing to let go, but suddenly confessed to biting him and lying about the incident when police placed him in handcuffs. The cops continued with the arrest, at which point Khudaynazar tried to block them from escorting Huang out of the apartment and assaulted an officer. Both suspects were charged with assault and battery on a household member, and Khudaynazar faces an additional charge of assault and battery on a police officer. They both pleaded not guilty and are on unpaid leave from their jobs pending the outcomes of their cases. Number 20. Taj Taylor. In one of the latest cases of alarming civilian behavior on a commercial aircraft, an Allegiant Airlines passenger is accused of making a bomb threat during a flight from St. Pete Clearwater Airport in Florida to Roanoke, Virginia. The incident occurred on Sunday, July 6th of 2025, when a man identified by law enforcement as 27-year-old Taj Taylor reportedly told a fellow traveler that his laptop was a bomb. The passenger immediately notified cabin crew members, and several other witnesses reported overhearing the disturbing statement. The plane turned around and headed back to St. Pete Clearwater, where it made an emergency landing. Pinellas County deputies arrested Taylor and searched his belongings but found no evidence of an explosive. Taylor reportedly denied making a bomb threat but admitted that he had recently been released from a mental facility and was suffering from a lack of clarity. He faces one federal count of making a false bomb threat and was remanded to jail after his parents appeared in court and refused to house him or help him obtain bond. The judge acknowledged that it's unusual for both of the defendant's parents to deny assistance due to safety concerns and cited this as a reason for his decision to hold Taylor without bail. Number 19. Corey Pritchett Jr., a Houston-based YouTuber with more than 5 million followers, is accused of kidnapping 2 women and then fleeing the country, resulting in his arrest in January of 2025 for a slew of criminal charges. Police learned of the incident in November of 2024 after a civilian called 911 at 1:18 in the morning and reported seeing 2 women on the side of an interstate in Waller County. The victims told law enforcement that they had met up with 26-year-old Corey Pritchett Jr. at a gym earlier that day with plans to work out together. The trio also rode ATVs and went to a bowling alley where the situation took an alarming turn. According to a criminal complaint, Pritchett's friends began acting suspicious after running into a group of people they had problems with. Pritchett left the bowling alley and was gone for a long time, and the women rode with one of his friends to retrieve some belongings they had left in his car. They met with Pritchett outside a supermarket, where he offered to drive the women home but was acting like a completely different person than before. The women nevertheless accepted the ride, and it wasn't long before Pritchett drove in the opposite direction of their destination, reaching estimated speeds of at least 100 miles per hour while firing a handgun through the open sunroof. He reportedly refused the women's repeated requests to drive them home and continued to drive erratically, despite their efforts to calm him down. At one point, he called a friend and talked about wanting to possibly kill the victims and dump their bodies. The women were convinced that they were going to die, but Pritchett had a last-minute change of heart and let them go. He fled to Qatar and was arrested on 2 kidnapping charges in January of 2025 after returning to the United States. Pritchett was released from the Harris County Jail after posting bonds totaling $200,000, and the case appears to be ongoing. Number 18. James Williamson. A Houston area volleyball coach is facing a DWI charge after leading Dallas police on a bizarre, slow-speed chase in an SUV with a missing wheel. The pursuit occurred during the early morning hours of Monday, June 30th, 2025, when firefighters responded to a call about a smoking Jeep Grand Wagoneer. The airbags had deployed and the left front wheel was destroyed, but the driver sped off when the firefighters attempted to check on him. Police were called, and officers followed the SUV as the front end tilted and scraped against the pavement, causing sparks to fly from beneath the undercarriage, later identified as 57-year-old James Williamson of Cyprus. The fleeing driver was in town for a volleyball tournament that a team he coached was competing in. He eventually parked on someone's lawn, ending the unusual chase, and failed a field sobriety test, resulting in his arrest for driving while intoxicated. A breathalyzer indicated that his blood alcohol content was more than twice the legal limits, and officers observed other signs of intoxication, including slurred speech. When questioned about his alcohol consumption, Williamson reportedly admitted to drinking 4 to 5 beers at a bar. He told police that he damaged his SUV when he hit a curb and screwed up, and was booked into a county jail but no longer appears to be in custody. Number 17. Evan Scott Bobal. In May of 2025, a Florida man drove through an iconic Hobe Sound restaurant to charge his Tesla in the middle of the night, apparently unaware that he was being captured on surveillance video. The suspect, identified by police as 23-year-old Evan Scott Bobal, could be seen moving tables and chairs out of the way at Harry and the Natives in Palm Beach County after crashing his car into the building. The footage also showed the young man trying to access an electrical outlet. Later that morning, Bobal was found sleeping on the pavement outside a Winn-Dixie convenience store. He admitted that he had been out drinking with friends and was taken to the hospital while the investigation continued. During a visit to another convenience store, the officer tasked with investigating the case found Bobal's Tesla hooked up to a charging station. He also crossed paths with the suspect's grandparents, who were searching for Bobal. The officer then visited the restaurant where the owner had found a Tesla charging cord that had been left behind. In his attempts to charge his car, Bobal had unplugged an outdoor cooler, causing the business's milk and orange juice to spoil. Armed with a warrant, detectives paid a visit to the suspect's house and arrested him for felony burglary and misdemeanor attempted theft. Following his first court hearing the next day, Bobal posted bonds totaling $12,500 and was released from the Martin County Jail. He's banned from going near the restaurant or having any contact with its owners as he awaits his next court hearing, and has retained a private defense attorney to represent him in court. Number 16. Kyle Vazquez. In April 2025, a 27-year-old Long Island, New York man named Kyle Vazquez fell under investigation after dumping a container of 50 eggs over his head at the entrance of a gelato shop in Center Reach. He then got in his vehicle and drove off, leaving behind a mess of eggs and shells for the store's employees to clean. In a video of the stunt that was later uploaded to social media, he could be heard saying, "I'm Tommy Tough-Knuckle, and I'm the reason egg prices are so high." Police subsequently discovered other instances of distasteful behavior. The day after the egg incident, Vazquez reportedly poured a bucket of beans over his head inside a Chinese restaurant. His social media accounts contain videos of these and other pranks, including 3 occasions in May when he went to strangers' homes and asked to use the bathroom while making the need seem urgent. Vazquez then caused disturbances inside the residences while filming household members without their knowledge or consent. He was charged with 8 crimes, including criminal tampering, unlawful surveillance, and disseminating an unlawful surveillance image. While Vazquez seemed to enjoy the attention he got from his online content, he was in no mood to talk to reporters as he attempted to leave the courthouse through an emergency exit. Shortly after his arrest, authorities encouraged anyone who thinks they may have been victimized by Vazquez to contact law enforcement. Number 15. David Dewayne Cunningham. In a bizarre, ongoing legal saga that began on May 24th of 2025, sheriff's deputies were called to a house party in Gulfport, Mississippi, where witnesses reported that a man had accidentally shot the homeowner's dog. By the time law enforcement arrived, the suspect had left the scene in the back seat of a Pritchett, Alabama police car. Deputies conducted a traffic stop, but before they could approach the vehicle, a man in dark clothing exited the car, wearing a badge and a gun. He identified himself as 22-year-old Pritchett officer David Dewayne Cunningham. In the back seat, police found a young man in handcuffs. The car also contained a third occupant named Kristen Allen. The young man was uncuffed and released, and both Allen and Cunningham were allowed to walk free while the investigation continued. He later told law enforcement that he had been taken against his will and feared for his life, resulted in Cunningham's arrest days later at a Disney World resort in Florida. According to news reports, Cunningham had previously worked for the Mobile, Alabama Police Department prior to joining the force in Pritchett. He resigned in February of this year after becoming the subject of an internal investigation, which authorities have declined to discuss with the public. Cunningham was charged with felony kidnapping, while Allen faces a felony count for hindering prosecution. Following his arrest, the Pritchett Police Department launched an internal investigation, including allegations that Cunningham drove a patrol car across state lines in violation of the agency's policies. He has since been fired from the department, and the case is ongoing. Number 14. Jimmy Wayne Carwyle. in one of the latest celebrity stalking cases to make news headlines. A Mississippi man was arrested after crashing his car outside actress Jennifer Aniston's Hollywood home. 48-year-old Jimmy Wayne Carwyle was taken into custody after the accident, which occurred in early May of 2025 in LA's Bel Air neighborhood. He reportedly rammed his PT Cruiser through the property's front gate, but was removed from the driveway at gunpoint by a security guard, who detained him until law enforcement arrived. According to prosecutors, Carwyle had been harassing Aniston via voicemail, email, and social media for 2 years leading up to his arrest. He pleaded not guilty to felony stalking and vandalism, along with an aggravating circumstance of threatening great bodily harm, and was later found incompetent to stand trial after undergoing a court-ordered mental evaluation. Carwyle demanded a second opinion from another expert, and the judge granted his request. The second expert also deemed him incompetent to stand trial, and he was ordered to undergo psychiatric treatment with the goal of restoring him to competency so the proceedings can resume. If convicted as charged, he could face 3 years in prison. In the meantime, the case remains at an indefinite standstill. Number 13. Joseph Jones. What began as an ordinary Thursday morning in late January of 2025, police in Mobile, Alabama spotted a stolen skid steer being driven around in public. When officers attempted to pull the vehicle over, the driver allegedly tried to hit one of the cops with it. Later identified as a 36-year-old homeless man named Joseph Jones, he fled the scene and boarded a nearby interstate while continuing to refuse to pull over for pursuing officers. He struck a patrol car with the skid steer during the chase, causing major damage to the vehicle, and made several additional attempts to strike members of law enforcement and their cruisers. The chase ended after officers shot Jones, who was hospitalized with severe injuries and placed on a ventilator. He's reportedly now paralyzed and remains in the hospital, unable to attend his court hearings. Jones is charged with resisting arrest, theft of property, reckless endangerment, criminal mischief, attempting to elude, and attempted assault. The judge overseeing the case postponed his arraignment until late August, giving him additional time to recover before he's expected in court. Number 12. BJ Penn. Former UFC champion BJ Penn's history of aggressive behavior and alcohol-induced violence dates at least as far back as 2015. The 46-year-old has been arrested numerous times over the years for drunken brawls and assaults, eventually resulting in UFC's decision to release him in 2019. Penn's most recent run-in with the law enforcement occurred in May of 2025, when he was arrested at his Hilo, Hawaii home on a charge of abuse of a family or household member, offensive physical contact. In the months leading up to the incident, he had complained on social media about his belief that several of his relatives had been replaced by imposters. Penn was released from jail after posting $2,000 bail and quickly took to social media to share his side of the story. In a video of his arrest, officers could be seen trying to drag him out of bed while telling him that he was being arrested for harassment. The seemingly confused ex-fighter asked to contact an officer he knows for the sake of de-escalating the situation, while refusing to cooperate with the officers at the scene. The footage was reportedly filmed by Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt Pete the Greek Letsos, who demanded to know why Penn was being arrested. Penn failed to show up in court just a day after he was released from jail, and he was soon taken back into custody. Following Penn's second arrest, his 79-year-old mother, Lorraine Shin, obtained an order of protection against her son, accusing him of extreme psychological abuse. In her application for that order, Shin stated that Penn had been accusing her of being an imposter for several months. In one social media post, he stated that he believed his family had been murdered and called on police to investigate, and demanded the removal of the alleged impersonators from his property. Just days after his second arrest, Penn was arrested for the third time in less than a week for violating the conditions of his bail. He was arrested yet again the following week for allegedly violating his mother's restraining order. Penn posted bail and was once again sprung loose. In an Instagram post, he criticized prosecutors for trying to obtain a court-ordered mental evaluation. He seemed to be in denial that he could be mentally ill, and bragged that he knew how to say the right things to pass a psychiatric exam. If he's found guilty of violating his mother's restraining order, he could spend up to a year behind bars and a maximum fine of $1,000. Number 11. Charles Coffman. A 19-year-old Tennessee man named Charles Coffman is facing multiple serious criminal charges for kidnapping a young child and brutally assaulting a man with a toilet plunger. Police were dispatched to the scene at a Knoxville residence in early June of 2025 after receiving a call from someone who believed Coffman had possibly killed someone. Responding officers found the male victim unclothed and suffering from serious head injuries in the bathroom. The home's interior smelled overwhelmingly of bleach, and both the child and the victim's SUV were missing. Authorities issued a "Be on the lookout" notice, and the vehicle was located in Sevierville with Coffman behind the wheel. The abducted child was with him, along with her unnamed mother. According to police, Coffman claimed that he had permission to drive the vehicle and that the girl's mother had given him permission to take her, while the child's mum denied even knowing the suspect. Coffman confessed to striking the victim repeatedly in the face, slamming him to the ground, beating him with a plunger, and then stuffing the plunger in his mouth. He also admitted to dragging the victim into the woods, disrobing him, and pouring bleach into his wounds. Prosecutors charged Coffman with aggravated kidnapping, attempted second-degree murder, theft, and tampering with evidence. Records show that he's awaiting his next court hearing from behind bars at the Knox County Jail in lieu of bonds totaling more than $150,000. Number 10. William Mullins McLeod Jr. Police officers in Charleston, South Carolina, encountered an unusual situation on the night of May 14, 2025, when they spotted one of the area's prominent lawyers almost completely undressed and behaving erratically in the street. Clad only in his underwear and shoes, 53-year-old William Mullins McLeod Jr. was reportedly yelling at the top of his lungs and rambling incoherently as he wandered near an intersection in the downtown area. Officers later noted that they could hear McLeod from a block away as they approached the scene. McLeod was uncooperative and began yelling even louder when police instructed him to put his hands behind his back. The cops eventually got him under control, but his strange behavior continued while he referred to himself as God and Superman. During the ride down to booking, McLeod made what sounded like vague threats directed towards nothing in particular. He was sweating profusely, and his eyes were extremely bloodshot and dilated, leading to the suspicion that he was high on some sort of stimulant. During McLeod's initial court hearing, his defense attorney insisted that no drugs or alcohol were involved in the incident, pointing out that law enforcement had not conducted a blood test to determine whether he was under the influence of any substances. The lawyer blamed his client's behavior on exhaustion and the mental health crisis, claiming that McLeod hadn't slept in days and was overwhelmed by the demands of his career. McLeod was released from custody after agreeing to enter a mental health program, and the case appears to be ongoing. Number 9. Victoria Vidal. In early May of 2025, police in Springfield Township, Ohio, pulled over the driver of a vehicle whose owner was wanted on an arrest warrant and who had a suspended license. While detaining the woman behind the wheel, 55-year-old Akron resident Victoria Vidal, officers noticed a raccoon named Chewy sitting in the driver's seat with a methamphetamine pipe in his mouth. An elderly passenger tried grabbing the pipe away from the raccoon, but officers seized it as evidence. Law enforcement searched the vehicle and found a bulk amount of meth, suspected crack cocaine, and 3 glass pipes. As the bizarre situation played out in body cam footage of the traffic stop, one of the cops could be heard struggling to stifle his laughter. Vidal was cited for driving with a suspended license and charged with possession of drugs and possession of drug paraphernalia. She was taken to the Cuyahoga Falls Police Department for the outstanding warrant, and authorities announced that additional charges may be forthcoming after lab tests were carried out on Vidal's suspected crack cocaine. The raccoon was unharmed, and police notified the proper authorities, who were tasked with determining whether Vidal possessed the proper paperwork and documentation to own the creature. Her case appears to be ongoing. Number 8. Marcelo Alexander Mariduena. On Friday, May 2nd of 2025, police in Oakwood, Georgia responded to reports of gunfire in a residential neighborhood. Upon arriving at the scene, officers were told that a man named Marcelo Alexander Mariduena had shot his brother and barricaded himself inside his home. Mariduena's brother was taken to the hospital in critical condition, while members of law enforcement tried coaxing the suspect out of the house. He refused to exit the home, resulting in an hours-long standoff. In a series of TikTok videos, Mariduena admitted to shooting his brother for calling him a vegan. He accused the victim of trying to frame him and calling the cops on him, claiming that his brother had left Ecuador for criminal reasons. A closer look at Mariduena's TikTok account revealed disturbing content he had previously posted, including videos of his bowel movements, leading authorities to question his mental stability. The victim's condition stabilized and he survived his injuries. In the meantime, Mariduena appears to remain in custody at the Hall County Jail. Number 7. Sherzod Mansurov. A security guard shift at the Sunny Isles Beach Government Center in Florida took a shockingly unusual turn in May of 2025 when a seemingly disturbed man entered the building and asked for the police. Footage of the incident showed the suspect, later identified as Sherzod Mansurov, leaving and returning a short while later with a handful of rocks which he threw at shatter-resistant windows. He then barricaded himself inside the building's restroom but decided to surrender after police called for canine assistance. Surveillance footage of Mansurov's arrest showed him squirming toward the officers on a hallway floor instead of approaching on foot. He was handcuffed without further incident and was charged with felony third-degree mischief. Records show that he was released on his own recognizance and is currently awaiting his next court hearing, which is scheduled for September. Mansurov's reasons for getting so upset in the first place remain unclear. Number 6. Donald Robert Hubbard and Louie Dan Sherman. In a peculiar incident that occurred in June of 2025, a Georgia man exposed himself to a game camera while trespassing onto a private property near Indian Mountain ATV Park in Cherokee County. He and another man then shot the camera in an attempt to destroy evidence, but the incriminating footage had already been secured. Both suspects, who were later identified as 66-year-old Donald Robert Hubbard and 52-year-old Louie Dan Sherman, were banned from possessing guns due to prior felony convictions. Police obtained a warrant and arrested both men in Polk County. Hubbard was charged with public lewdness, criminal mischief, and certain persons forbidden to carry a firearm. Sherman was charged with criminal mischief and certain persons forbidden to carry a firearm. Both defendants appear to be free on bond as they await their next court hearings. Number 5. Michael Anthony Music. Shortly after 8:30 a.m. one morning in June of 2025, a Burger King employee in Wildwood, Florida, called the police and reported that there was a man talking to himself inside a vehicle in the restaurant's parking lot. Later identified as 32-year-old Michael Anthony Music, he had been rocking back and forth for over a half hour. A Sumter County Sheriff's deputy responded to the scene where Music exited his car in a state of disarray, with no shirt on, only one shoe, and his shorts falling down. When questioned about their activity, Music and his girlfriend claimed that they were looking for some change to buy food, and Music's missing shoe. He reportedly appeared to be under the influence of some type of narcotic, and a search of the couple's car further pointed toward this likelihood. Upon opening the front door, the deputy noticed multiple syringes along with a cup containing a suspicious purple liquid. The syringes tested positive for fentanyl, and Music was charged with possession of fentanyl and drug paraphernalia. Number 4. Vladiuir Nunez. In May of 2025, 911 dispatchers in Cape Coral, Florida, received multiple phone calls about a man taking his clothes off, throwing vapes at cars, and threatening to murder families in a residential neighborhood. After learning that the police had been called, he reportedly began putting his clothes back on. Later identified as 44-year-old Vladiuir Nunez, he attempted to run from the police and continued to resist even after being taken to the ground. Officers eventually managed to get him under control, and he was charged with indecent exposure, disturbing the peace, resisting an officer without violence, loitering and prowling, and simple assault. The incident marked the suspect's 18th arrest in Lee County. His record dates at least as far back as 2000 and consists of multiple trespassing, grand theft, battery, resisting arrest, driving with a suspended license, disorderly intoxication, and simple assault. During the COVID pandemic, he was accused of violating a stay-at-home order and stealing a car. Nunez is currently in custody at the Lee County Jail, where records list him as a transient, in lieu of bonds totaling $9,000. Number 3. Xaid Khan. While responding to a suspicious incident in Austin, Florida, on a Sunday evening in June of 2025, Volusia County deputies spoke with a man named Jared Gaver, whose work van had been vandalized. Someone had smashed the vehicle's windows, and while law enforcement investigated at the scene, Gaver noticed a mud-covered, unclothed man emerging from a nearby barn. He alerted the deputies, who identified the suspect as 31-year-old Xaid Khan. When questioned about his activities, Khan reportedly said he had been acting under the guidance of a higher power, but that he didn't fully remember what had happened. He was also unable to explain why he had taken off his clothes, which were found scattered throughout the property. A garden hose was running, and furniture had been rearranged at a nearby home, and Khan was charged with trespassing, indecent exposure, and burglary of an unoccupied conveyance. He was released from jail after posting a $1,500 bond and is currently awaiting a pre-trial hearing. Number 2. Sarah Weber. On Saturday, January 4th of 2025, 28-year-old Sarah Weber of Charlotte, North Carolina, was taken into police custody on a felony child neglect charge. According to court documents, she had admittedly deprived her daughter of solid food for 6 months, causing the child to fall ill with digestive issues for about a month. During that time, Weber never took the girl to the doctor. When she was finally taken to the emergency room, a physician determined that she was severely malnourished. She was admitted to the hospital and Weber was booked into the Mecklenburg County Jail, but has since been released on bond as her case continues in court. Number 1. Drunk driver puts foot in mouth. After being pulled over for swerving along a Southern California road after ringing in the 2025 New Year, a male driver intended to reassure Marietta police officers that he was the designated driver that night. But he accidentally said, "I'm the DUI," and he didn't even notice the mistakes when one of the cops asked, "You're the DUI tonight?" The man said yes, only to realize he had slipped up his wording when the officer pointed it out to him. He admitted to drinking beer and champagne hours earlier, but could be seen performing poorly on a field sobriety test that was captured on police body cam video. After struggling to maintain his balance and nearly falling several times, the man was arrested on suspicion of driving under the influence. The Marietta Police Department used the footage to promote safe practices during the holiday and remind the public of the consequences of drinking and driving. Thanks for watching. Would you rather spend 1 year in prison starting today or lose 5 years from the end of your life? Let us know in the comments section below.